Welcome back, everyone. Today I have another video. This time is that time of the month here where I do another tier list of what I think are the best decks, or what I consider after playing the format for a month now, for OP3. After testing some of the decks, I still have a lot more to test and flush out of the my system at least. But I think I have a decent idea of what I think of each leader, and I think where they position on the meta at the moment. So let's start it off. I'm trying to make it as fast as possible because it's gonna be a lot of leaders. Let's go with the best deck of the format. I think this Whitebeard. I think the problem with this deck is that it's good against yellow, which is gonna be well represented. I think it's not like terrible, because like them burning your life is not that important, and it's good against Zoro, which is the other deck that is gonna be well represented. So those two decks are gonna be like, that's what's gonna put him over the edge. Also, it got some amazing support in the terms of Izo and Marco, so that is gonna put the leader probably as the best deck of the format. Although it's not like such a big gap that is not gonna be unbeatable. There is definitely decks that are gonna be able to compete against them. But this one is just the level of consistency and the level of power of the deck is gonna make it like be probably one of the decks to beat out the format for sure. Let's move into another. Since we're talking about Zoro, Zoro is gonna be good still. It can be played three different ways, I feel like, or it can be played different ways. You can play either like a super heavy aggro way, where you play a bunch of one drops and then play like rushers. You can play like more mid range, where you play like a more Whitebeard Pirates heavy engine. Or you can play more like a removal heavy type of deck. It's just like there's different variants, and it's difficult. Each version has better matchup versus like different things, and it has worse matchup versus something else. So I cannot say like it's gonna be a deck that is gonna be good against everything, because there are matchups that are gonna be like more difficult than others. But it's basically based on how you build the deck more than anything. Then we're gonna move into we talked about, let's just do it in order here. Kaido. I think Kaido could be a decent tier 2 deck. I just recently posted a deck for this guy, and I don't even think it's bad. I think it's just very decent. It got some amazing support that allows you to just get rid of the bricks out of your hand. That was mainly the big issue with this guy, because you're playing Island and you're playing Kaido and you're playing all these cards. Sometimes you just were stuck with these cards that have no counter power, and you couldn't do anything with them. But with the addition of Kaya and the other 2K counter, Khalifa, you're able to rummage them out of your hand, and that's gonna be a deck that is gonna be decent enough to be a tier 2 deck, I think. Then we have Crocodile. I think it's not his format yet. I mean, it could be a fun rug deck. But next format, we know for sure this guy is gonna shine. So I know it's not his format yet. I didn't really get anything new that you can abuse with him. So I will just wait until next format if you want to play him. Next format is gonna be way, 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 way better. So I would just wait for him. Now we have another guy that has snuck into, I think, a tier 1 leader. I think it's good enough because right now, a lot of the removal that we have in the game is like KO based removal, right? They're trying to just KO, or that's the only one that you can like play right now. But this one says bounce back to the deck, because they got some new cards that are amazing. Like you can draw cards now. You can bounce back to the bottom of the deck for the 1,000 Swords. Like you got some amazing support that doesn't trigger the KO effects abilities, and gets around like all those black cards that says if this card is KO or whatever the case might be. So for that reason, it has become a really favorite of mine. I think it's a deck that is gonna do very well into this format, and it's just gonna keep getting better as next format is gonna get even more support. So I would keep an eye out for this card. Flamingo did not get anything new. I don't think it's bad. I mean, I just think it did move to like probably a tier 2 deck, because it just didn't receive any support. It's not doing anything really special that now Whitebeard cannot compete with. because now their ability to play back to back to back 9-drop and still having a blocker or something else to deal with, whatever you're doing, is still very good for this deck. So, I mean, even this matchup hasn't been like, it just got worse. And this is the reason to play Flamingo the last format, because of this one. However, green is no longer in the mix, so it could be like a tier. It's debating between here and here, being a tier 1 or tier 2 deck. I think it will be based on how the format develops, as to whether or not this deck is gonna be better. Then we have Garp. Garp, I think, is could be a fun rock deck, but it could also be a decent deck to play in the format. I think red got some like good 1-drops that you can play, and then you can discard the cards that you can play for that, and you get a lot of like redundancy for what she's trying to do. So I think it's decent enough to be in as a tier 2 deck that is gonna do well enough. I think it's not gonna be bad. Then we have Ivankov. Ivankov, this deck is kind of weird. I think it's a tier 2 deck, but it's sometimes like a rock deck, because it's based on like it is really dependent on drawing the 7-drop. If you don't draw the 7-drop, you're gonna have a bad time, and if you're going second on top of that, it's gonna be a much harder game. So it's a good deck, but it requires a lot of planning and a lot of reps with the deck. You have to be really a master for it to be a tier 2 deck. And it's not that it's bad because of that. Like, it's not like that's the reason why the deck wouldn't be a tier 2, but I think it's in the bottom of the tier 2 decks for sure. Kaido, I think it needs to do too much to compete now. I think it's a tier 2 deck. I would put it somewhere here, I guess. It has to do too much to try to compete with what's going on up there. Like, yellow is really hard. You have to like basically do back-to-back 10-drop to be able to compete against that deck. So I don't think, actually, it has lost a lot of potential because of that reason alone. Because yellow just being able to heal themselves every time they do something, it could eventually get passed down to a rogue deck. If there is just yellow, the ability to heal themselves just automatically kind of corners what the deck is trying to do. So it's not a bad deck. It's just it's getting rough, and like it's getting difficult for him to be like more competitive as the time goes on, I think. Kid and Kinemon, well, they're definitely tier 2. They're not going like to tier 0, like for a rock deck for sure. But it's definitely something that it has lost a lot of power, as same as with Kid. The fact that yellow entered the format and they have an answer to the A-drop immediately, that is the best answer that you can have to any of the A-drops, does make them... I'm going to put Kinemon as well there, because it does diminish the power level of the deck. Since yellow is going to be the best color, the new color in the block, the new Kid in the block, everyone wants to like maybe try it out, is going to want to play it. It's going to have a lot of representation, and the fact that just one card answers your A-drop is going to push it down to the tier 2 decks for sure. And it's the same with Kinemon. It's not a bad deck. It's going to have a good deck, a good decent matchup against Whitebeard and Zoro. At least it's not going to be the worst matchup. Like against blue, it's going to be amazing too. But it has its problems at the moment. Mainly is the fact that yellow exists. So I would put it here. It's still going to have some rough matchup versus some like everything else. So yeah, I think it could still be like at the top of the tier 2 decks. They were tier 1 at the last format. Law is gonna be very good. I think Law, the only problem with Law is a lot of removal, and that will tie down to however the red decks build their own decks. If they build it to have a lot of removal included in their own deck, then they're gonna have a much better matchup against Law. But if they don't build the decks that way, you're still gonna have an amazing matchup against anything. Your yellow matchup is insane because you have a lot of blockers, so you don't really care about what they're doing, and you're super fast, so you're gonna do everything that you want to do. La is gonna be able to be built many different ways, so I think it's a tier 1 deck for sure. It's gonna be a contender there too. Keen, I think it's a fun, not even a raw deck. It's just not his format yet. It's missing something. It does need some more support for it to be more impactful in general. And it's just his ability is just not good enough. So gonna put it on the notice format yet. Maybe down the line they may give some leader specific support that is gonna be really good, and then is when he's gonna like come back to be a good leader. Sakasuki, I think it could be a tier 2 too as well. I mean, if I'm gonna put any black decks on Fun Rocks, I mean, it's not a bad idea, like it's not a bad ability, and you have the Fujitora to play with him, and just reduces everything, and you have an easy way to reduce. So I haven't played him, but I think it makes sense. Like having the removal on the leader, it's good enough, and it's gonna be good enough to like play like any other black deck. It's just a different leader, and I think it will work very well with the new support that we got. Magellan. So this one is gonna be a tier 1 or a tier 2. I think the new support that he got is good enough to combat like anything that is happening here. Like you can build your deck to bait like Whitebeard, because you have the one that eats their energy in every turn, and you can be aggressive enough to where you can actually abuse the fact that they don't get to play the 9-drop, like a back-to-back 9-drop, or at least if they do, you have more answers. It's gonna have an okay matchup against Zoro. You have removal, and removal plus like that aggression is gonna be good enough sometimes, depending on how they build the deck. Also, again, that all that factors into how these matchups are gonna go. Blue is gonna be a bad matchup for sure, because the removal that they have ignore whatever you're trying to do, so you don't get your own KO effects. So that's gonna be like not the best matchup for sure. But besides all of that, you can play against any of these decks, and you're gonna have a good time. You're not gonna have like the fact that you got 2 good cards for any matchup is gonna be very good for this deck. So I do put it on tier 1, maybe on the lower end of the tier 1s, but definitely a tier 1 deck. I haven't played Oden, but the same problem as with these 2 decks, and I think it's a fun rock deck because these ones, yeah, they got answer a little bit, but you still can't play them to the full potential. This one got nothing out of the new set. This one's at least got some new support that you can play. This one you have to decide either to play the 6-drop, the new one, the Don Creek, or you can play the old stuff that you were playing. And it's just at that point just play one of these 2 leaders, right? So they got nothing out of the new set, and it's still gonna be decent, but it just got worse with the new support that it came out. So it will need some more support to get more like viable wins with him. Now into the set 3 leaders. Now we have Ace. Ace, I think, is a tier 2 deck. I think it has some big problems versus everything basically, but it has no, like, again, it's a versatile deck where you can play against everything, and you're not gonna have a bad time versus anything specifically, but you're not gonna be the best deck to beat anything specifically. It's just a toolboxy deck that you're gonna be able to adapt, but I don't think it's gonna be able to be a tier 1 deck. I mean, the problem with the deck is mainly the fact that you don't have too much pressure. Like the only cards that really do anything is your 5-cost Marco and your Ace, your 7-cost Ace. The 9-drop is not even that amazing in this leader. It's okay. I mean, it's a good card to play in any red deck, I guess, but sometimes you don't even have the time to play against in this format that is so like tempo heavy and some and the likes. And then if they drop a big mom, and then you don't have, like, you have to waste 2 cards to answer it, and then there's too many variables for me to tell you this leader is gonna be like a tier 1 leader. So I will put it as a tier 2. Kuro, I think it's a raw deck. It's just something that you're gonna play for fun, not because you wanna win something in specific. The East Blue cards that we have at the moment are terrible. They don't. The only one is good is Don Creek, but everything else is just super mediocre at best. And I don't think it's gonna make this leader like a tier 1 leader or a tier 2 leader. It's just no one is gonna play it because the card quality that we have for East Blue on green is terrible. So until we get more support for him, he's just a fun rock deck to play. Might be not even his format yet, but it's just I think because it's a new leader, people are gonna try it. It's gonna be there, and so is Arlong. I think Arlong needs more support in the form of more triggers that you can play out of life, because the trigger that you gave him on green are terrible. The only good triggers that you have is on yellow, but you don't have enough for it to be like super good. So it's missing some more support. It's not a bad deck completely. You're playing yellow and you play some good cards that you can complement your strategy with. But it's still missing like a lot of support to be like a tier 2 deck for sure. Nami is gonna be a controversial one, because this leader can go like anywhere here. Like some hands could get you to be a tier 1 deck, because you got to draw your curve, your opponent is doing nothing, then you're bouncing back their stuff, and then they have to defend your 7k return, and then you can just mill yourself. So it is difficult to analyze this one and tell you where it is, because in terms of consistency, and it's not going to be an easy way to mill yourself out, I'm going to put it as a tier 2 deck, because I don't think it's consistent enough to mill yourself out every turn. And I think it can get there. It can do it for sure. It's not a terrible deck. Some strategies are going to struggle against it, versus like if they cannot KO the Nami, like green is going to have a hard time against it. Like red decks are going to have an okay time because they can remove the Seth. It's all about the removal, really. If they can remove the Seth on time and they don't have to suffer the Seth or whatever that mills 7 easily, then you're not going to have as much as trouble against Nami. Eventually, you build a board, and she just has to defend, and she has to draw like mill herself out with the extra cards, which is not that easy. So that's why I will put it as a tier 2, and on the lower levels of that one at that, to be honest. This one is going to be a fun rock deck. I think it's probably missing more support, and not only that, it's missing the fact that the leader cannot attack is kind of a big issue, because there are strategies that are going to just remove your board, and then you can literally not attack. So as long as they can remove your cards, you're going to have a terrible time in the game. So it has some flaws to the strategy, but it's very nice to play, and it can win games, it can do things, but it's definitely just going to be a raw deck. I don't think it's going to be more than that. Rob Lucci, however. Rob Lucci is going to be a tier 1 deck, and it's going to be it's somewhere here. I'm not entirely sure yet where it fits, but it's going to be in the upper levels of the tier 1, because its strategy is very simple. You're playing a black deck, and then you're using the leader to basically put opponent at 0 life, and then the leader says, you cannot block me. You have to outcombo me because I'm going to restand. So it is very nice for that reason, and it definitely offers some good value, and I think it's going to be one of the best black leaders out of the new set. Then we have Big Mom. I want to put it as a tier 2 deck, because it has 2 colors, and I haven't completely explored her. I think it has potential, but her ability is kind of difficult to manage sometimes. You have to be a little bit ahead for it to be more impactful. So it is difficult to analyze a deck on those merits, right? So I need more testing with it to be able to say that it's a tier 2 deck. So I will put it as a fun rod deck at the moment. But I think it has the potential to be a tier 2 deck. Then Karakuri, another new leader that we have, that is definitely going to hit the tier 1 spot immediately. As I think it can just play against anything and have a good matchup, except Law. Law is going to be a hard matchup. You're going to need some heavy like text to play against Law. But against everything else, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna have a game, you're gonna play your game, and they're gonna have to beat you. And sometimes they do, but a lot of the times you're gonna be able to do Big Mom, or Karakuri into Big Mom, or there's different combinations that you can do, and you can get there. And the leader itself is good enough, because you can rearrange your own triggers, and that's very, very good. And you can prevent the opponent from getting like a crazy trigger as well. So it works in all the spectrums of the deck, and I think it's gonna be very competitive. Now we have Sanji. Sanji is gonna be a fun deck for sure. Right now it's missing support. a lot of it. I think it needs more vanilla support for it to be amazing. It did get some new good cards, like the draw 2 is gonna be good, but it's still gonna be a fun deck at that point. And so it's gonna be Luffy. I think it's just a fun deck at the moment. It's missing some more support for it to be like very very good. And I would just put it as a fun deck. I don't know exactly where, but we'll leave it here. And I think it's just it's missing more support to be like really really good. We have Luffy. I think Luffy was good last set, and it's gonna be good this set. But we're gonna put it at the bottom because I don't know exactly. Because I don't know if the removal is gonna get him there. Like, yeah, you have a lot of removal, but what are you gonna do against like a big mom, or like if they have like a 10 drop or they have an 8 drop that is hard to remove. Like they have to spend multiple cards to be able to remove it. So it's difficult, but it can get there. I think it's definitely on the same ballpark. I just don't know if it's gonna have the same success as it has been having in the past formats. Maybe it is the same as to where like we were playing Zoro before at the beginning, and then it just moved down to Luffy because it was more efficient. At least against Whitebeard. So because of that reason, they just moved a little bit more to where it's probably gonna share some of the success that it's been having in the past few formats. This one is gonna be a fun rod deck. I played it before, and I think this deck is just decent. It's not like the worst deck that I ever play. I think it's very very playable, and I think it just can definitely do something amazing with the leader. Let's do Ura. I think Ura is not this format yet, and it's just very like in the same parallel as King. It needs like a leader specific support for us to choose her over any other leader that is already there. Like, what would you choose Ura when you can play Zoro? There is just no reason for. So unless he gets a leader specific support, he's not gonna see some play at all. We have a Smoker. Smoker is gonna be again, it's another black deck that if I put Rob Lucci on the top, I can put a Smoker on the top as well. So we can put it here. I mean, you can put it on tier 1 because it's just as good as this guy. His ability is not as impactful as this one, but it's still gonna be really really good. It's gonna be a tier 2 or tier 1 contender for sure. You can play him or you can play Rob Lucci. Like there are different leaders on what they do, but they accomplish the same thing. You're just playing good black cards to play with the leader, basically, and the leader gets some value depending on what the opponent is playing. It is what it is. You choose based on the meta, I think. Big Mom is another yellow leader, same as Karakuri. I think his Karakuri has more value for him, so I think she's a good tier 2 leader. Yellow is gonna be a strong color coming out into the new set, and I think she's not bad. You get to play Big Mom, which is the most important thing about it, and why like Arlong is not like an amazing deck here, because yeah, I mean I guess that's the reason why I would put this Big Mom as a tier 2, because yeah, I mean it's the same thing. Like you get to play Big Mom, and that on itself is a feat for the deck. Like it just increases the power level of the deck a little bit, because that card is just very unfair, and at the moment there is not many answers that you have for her. So being able to play her is gonna give you games here and there, and it's gonna be very impactful for that reason. Her ability on itself is not that amazing as Karakuri's one, but it can help you set up some triggers. It can help you awaken not awaken. I'm sorry, take your own life if that's the case, if that's what you need. But yeah, I mean it's gonna be difficult for sure. Z has gotten some new support, and it could be a tier 2. I'm gonna put it as a tier 1 because, but I do like what he's doing. I think he got some really really nice support in the terms of the A drop, because now you get to use the leader ability more consistently, and you can definitely bring this leader and win something if you have enough of a. It depends. It's still gonna be the same problem. I think Zoro is gonna be the bane of the leader. The reason why people are not gonna play him at the moment, because Zoro is too efficient at attacking and just developing their board. But as soon as the format gets a little bit slower, this leader is gonna be extremely good. and it's gonna be that for that way, probably for the future. As long as there is a Zoro in the deck, this leader is gonna be like a little bit weaker. But against everything else, even against Whitebeard, he can still work very well. So yeah, I mean that's those are my thoughts on the deck list. Let me know what you guys on the meta right now. Let me know what you guys think on. Yeah, let me know what you think, if I maybe should move something up or down. Let me know in the comments, and let's have a healthy conversation about the format. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and have a good day.